Hello. And welcome back to another silly video. Okay, so this is gonna be just a cheesy ass video. I'm not gonna actually show any cars other than that one. And a couple of pictures of cars that I've owned in the past, because I'll talk about those. But this is my thank you to all of you guys and girls out there, the 1,000 of you who have actually subscribed to my channel. And thank you! Woohoo! Yay! We have a community. I am just thoroughly, I don't know, speechless, actually. I'm proud of myself a little bit for, you know, getting some sort of accomplishment. So that feels good. It is a big milestone for me. I've been looking forward to it for a long time, and thank you to everyone who has subscribed to my channel and supported me. I do have a Patreon page, but I don't know. If you guys want to contribute to my Patreon, I'm not sure what I can give back to you other than these videos, but if you want to support me somehow and help me to purchase parts for the car and keep my cars and stuff, maybe that would be a very helpful thing for me, but it would be at your expense. And I don't know. I'm not asking you to do that. That's not why I'm here today. I don't want to sound like I'm begging for money, because I'm really not. But one of the things that happens when you hit 1,000 subscribers as a YouTuber, not that I consider myself a YouTuber, I don't really, but I do enjoy doing it, and I really enjoy making shows and producing shows, actually. Not that I'm a producer of any kind. I mean, usually I just jump in and swim around and do whatever the friggity frack, and, you know, my only plan is, okay, I'm changing these parts today, you know. But I do like producing my videos, and so this video is to say thank you, and thank you for your thank you for your subscription support. That means a lot to me, because now that I've reached this first level of YouTuberness, I qualify for monetization. So that will help me at least a little tiny bit to maybe pay part of a bill. Okay, so the first thing I wanted to do was somehow give back to you guys in a way of thanking you for being a supporter of my channel and myself and my Corvette, I suppose, anyway. And I wanted to answer some questions that are common questions that I get asked all the time. So I wanted to share a little bit more about myself with you as a token of my gratitude, and I hope that that means something to somebody out there. Of course, I don't know, maybe you guys don't give a crap about me, maybe you just want to see my car. Well, I feel like Knight Rider. Oh yeah, you're tall and handsome, whatever. Dude, this car, wow. I've been binge watching Knight Rider episodes online lately. The first question that I want to answer is, how did you get into cars? Why are you into cars? What is it about cars that gets you excited? Kind of like all sort of the same sort of can of worms, right? So I was 13 years old in 1979, and that put me right in the primo spot for amazing custom cars. It was right at the end of the gas crisis, and people were getting vehicles for cheap. Kids were getting the hand-me-downs, like the cool vans of the 60s and 70s were getting handed down to them, and so they could start customizing them and making them look really cool, and so custom cars were huge when I was a teenager. So there were cars like everywhere, really cool ones, you know, like everywhere you looked, even just in town or whatever. It was like cars were everywhere, you know, and as much as they are today, I guess. But there were a lot of hot cars everywhere, like hot rods, big block Camaros, and I mean, just beaters sometimes that were just like powerhouses that guys would race on the black street or whatever, you know, and drag race and stuff. But really, my exposure came from a number of different sources all at once, and so it all really affected me. There were a lot of cool magazines, like Hot Rod was cool, Carcraft was really cool. Carcraft featured a lot of really cool cars, like really nicely built, custom, like early 70s Camaros or late 60s Camaros or whatever. So in addition to there just being a lot of cool cars all over the place, so in addition to there being a lot of cool cars everywhere you looked, they were everywhere. Like, you know, cool magazines like Hot Rod and Carcraft and Muscle Car, I think, was another one. But my favorite car magazine of all of them was one that a lot of people haven't heard of, but many have, which surprises me in a very pleasant way. And that is Cartoons Magazine. I love that. I think I've probably mentioned it before as one of my inspirations, but that magazine was great. It was like Mad Magazine, but just for cool cars, you know, and all the stories in there were funny, like Crass and Bernie were hilarious, and they had a female artist who did her own stuff, and I thought that was really awesome. I can't remember her name now. Oh yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue. But she was really awesome and did great artwork. And, you know, it's so cool seeing her in that scene. She was like a chick in car scene. And so, you know, it was like, yay, girls in cars, and yeah, you know. And I had girlfriends who had cool cars. One of my friends had a really beautiful 63 Bug that was all customized. It was dark blue with black windows. Oh, it was so badass. And it was really low and had mag wheels. So that was a cool car of hers. I had friends with cool cars. My friend Bob had a 70, I think it was a 73 Charger with a 440. And it was red, white, and blue. It was really cool. And we drove that around a lot in high school. I had a friend with a 72 Mustang. We would go sit out in the parking lot at lunch and listen to Judas Priest. And that car was so huge. I just remember like that dash was like intimidating. It was just like gonna gobble you up, you know? And so that was a cool car. There was a guy with like a 72 or something, Camaro, that he had just gutted everything out of it, and he set it up so that he could just apply front brakes only. And he would sit in the school parking lot doing donuts and just burning off tires. It was pretty crazy. Then my friend Tim had a Roadrunner for a while, and he inherited his dad's, I think, a 70-something, late 70s Ford Econoline van. It was white, custom, with shag carpet, and it had the bubble windows on the side, and it had like a boat, like a sailboat theme mural on the sides. It was so badass. And it actually is still sitting in his mother's driveway now. I'm like, dude, you gotta sell me that so I can restore it and have a custom van. Although the Ford Econoline was never really my favorite of the vans. I like the older Dodge ones, the more boxy kind of Dodge van, you know, that was used in the 70s for customizing. And the short Chevy vans of that era too. I love those. Custom, like no windows on the side, maybe a bubble, but like totally custom, you know. So I had a lot of friends with cool cars. My dad had a lot of cars, but nothing really exciting. I think he had a 59 Chevy Cherokee Apache. It was an Apache pickup with a really long bed on it that was straight, not the cowl step side, but it was just the straight one. And it said Apache on it, and it had a wraparound windshield in the back. It was pretty badass. But other than that, they owned really crappy sedans usually. Like, they did have a 4-door Ford Maverick, which was pretty cool, but other than that, nothing really. Oh, and with Cartoons Magazine, what that was, it's like Mad Magazine, but for cars. And they would draw cars in really badass style, you know, and I loved that. And in some of the magazines, they had a how to draw a cartoon style car. So I was already into drawing and art and everything. And so I started to draw custom cars, and the Jeep CJ was one of my favorite ones to draw. It was easy. So aside from magazines and friends having cool cars and cars being everywhere, movies were a huge influence, and TV actually, because I watched a lot of TV like most kids do, I guess, especially back in those days. And there were a lot of cool cars on TV, like Knight Rider, for example. But it was really movies that moved me. We had Showtime and HBO, and so we got to see a lot of movies on there. Some that I watched over and over again. My all-time favorite car-based movie is definitely Corvette Summer with Mark Hamill and Annie Potts. Love that movie so much because I could relate, you know. It was just really cool. And the car was really badass. I don't think it's as badass as I used to, but it was for the time. I liked it a lot. And I thought Mark Hamill was cute. And I've always loved Annie Potts. So, and plus she drove around in a van that had Vanessa on the side, and she was just so cute in that. And her van was badass. I wanted that van. That, Smokey and the Bandit, those were out. Cannonball Run, Gumball Rally. Grand Theft Auto was a great movie. If you haven't seen Grand Theft Auto, you owe it to yourself to see that one. It is hilarious. It's so good. It's really campy. It's Ron Howard stars in it. And it's hilarious and fun, you know. Gumball Rally also. And Cannonball Run. Dude, if you haven't seen any of those, oh my God. You have to watch them immediately. I am not kidding. They are masterpieces of car paraphernalia. It's not the word I'm trying to think of. Memorabilia. I don't know what, but they are absolutely awesome movies. Of course, you know, Smoking the Bandit was great. Anyways, I watched those movies over and over and over again when I was young, and have since come to acquire them and still watch them a lot. Oh, and one movie that's really supreme is called Two-Lane Blacktop. It's just a really dark, weird movie, and it's all about this guy in his 55 Chevy and racing it and driving it. A couple of other absolutely wonderful movies I loved back then are Van Nuys Boulevard. Oh, there are some sweet cars in that movie. Van Nuys Boulevard. That might tie with Corvette Summer, actually. But there was Van Nuys Boulevard. Then there was a movie called Mulholland Drive back in the 70s, late 70s. That's the better one, I think. I think they redid that one and it's not the same. Then what else? Well, there were a lot of other movies that weren't really all those movies I just mentioned are all very car-centric movies. Oh, and you can't forget American Graffiti. A lot of cars in that. Though that's all the other movies I mentioned are based on stories that occurred in the 70s, which is an era that I am fond of. But American Graffiti is set in the 50s, I think, late 50s or 60s, early 60s. I don't remember, but of course that's a freaking classic. It's such a great movie. But, you know, I could go on and on and on about the movies that came out back in the day. And those inspired me so much to get into cars. And I always liked car racing, drag racing especially, I thought was cool. I really liked funny cars when I was a kid. I thought they were supposed to be funny, but they weren't. They were just badass. So that was my exposure to cars, and I couldn't look at this direction and not see a car. Oh, look over there's wow, there's an amazing car. You know, so that was part of why I just got like into cars. They're cool. But the real personal reason that I got into cars was because cars and motorcycles, especially dirt bikes, those equal freedom. They equal getting away from the toxic soup that was my family. I could hop in my car or on my bike and skedaddle my behind out downtown, go cruise up and down the main street, or I could take my dirt bike out into the woods and explore, which I did a lot of by myself. It's amazing I didn't crash and die in the woods. Probably would have been months before they had found me. I almost went off a cliff on my dirt bike once. So that sense of freedom, being able to escape the drama of my family life, it was pretty bad. A lot of alcohol was involved, and a lot of emotional manipulation and abuse, and neglect as well. Anyway, so why did I get into fixing and restoring and all that, you say? Well, I will tell you now. My passion for fixing things and restoring things is born out of a number of sources, and they all have a lot of weight as far as why they are important to me. So, number one is cost effectiveness. If you can follow the instructions on how to bake a quiche or anything, if you can follow a recipe to make marinara sauce and a recipe that, you know, for making pasta and, you know, stuff, then you can repair a car. It does not take any special skills, really. I mean, it takes experience and desire. And an inner kind of will of, oh yeah, I can do that, which I've always had. I have always figured, and this is probably the number one thing that is the reason why I do what I do. I have always felt that, hey, that person has hands and fingers and a brain and a couple of eyeballs. If they can do that, I can do that, you know? I can do that. Why can't I do that? And my parents, who were very hands-off, who said, well, we figured we'd let you figure that out for yourself. That was their excuse, I guess. But I gotta say, I'm thankful for it, because of that, I would just tear things apart to see how they worked. I got in trouble for that a few times, and for, you know, good reason. I should have asked first. But I also was exposed to plastic model building. I got to do some of that, which kind of was fun, because then I could pretend I owned a really cool car. And then it was kind of like, well, it's following the step-by-step instructions for assembly. Well, that's pretty much disassembly and reassembly of repairs. Huh. So in a sense, building plastic models helped me kind of understand, if not how to do real car repair, obviously it's plastic and tiny, but how to follow a process. Because it was really important for me to follow the process. Like, don't skip over step 2. You've got to do step 2 next. Then step 3. If you skip any step, you're going to screw yourself up. Just follow the steps, and you can do anything. Follow the steps, and you can do anything. Follow the steps, and you can do anything. Doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. It's true, though. Oh my gosh. I bet you I could take the old lady next door, my Triumph TR7 manual, and some tools out back, and say, all right, lady, I'm going to teach you how to change a brake pad on this car right now. I'm going to make you do it. And you're going to realize that it's easy to do. And she'll do it, and she'll be like, well, you were right. That was really easy to do. So anyways, there's some advice, I guess. Just follow the steps. Don't jump around. And if you don't know the steps, find the source of the steps. And once you got that, you're gold. You know, you got it. So that was part of why restoration and repair. Another reason why was, this was later on that I started to realize that it was a great way to save money. Because I would often take my car into some shop and say, hey, I need a new battery. This battery's dying. And I know that's the problem. And they would try to upsell me $800 worth of stuff I didn't need. And I just went to the next store down the street and got a battery and threw it in myself. And I'm like, $80 versus $800? You know? And so that happened too often. And I just was like, you know what? I can follow the steps. Oh my God, it's so easy. So I just did that. And I've saved tens of thousands of dollars on car repair or new cars or whatever, you know? It's great. I love it. And it gives me a sense of pride getting something finished like that. So that's all very important. Restoration. Why restoring things? So repairing and maintaining are different than restoring. Restoration is bringing something back to life, like it was new almost. It doesn't have to be perfect, like the paint doesn't need to be perfect, but as long as all the mechanicals are all really good. I mean, you can do like a light restoration or mild restoration, I guess, and you can just restore all the, you know, all the mechanicals to brand new spec and everything, and then basically you've got a new car. Rebuild the engine, rebuild the trans, rebuild the diff, rebuild the wheels, pack, you know, check or replace bearings, pack them, check spindles, yada, 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 right? So you just go through all that crap and you just redo it all, but you don't paint the car, you don't redo the interior, you don't do anything. It's just a well-maintained vehicle pretty much. So I'd say that's like a mild restoration or a complete overhaul maybe. I don't know. But then my favorite is the old barn find kind of situation where you find a car that's just like, it needs everything, but everything is there and it's all in good condition. Like the body doesn't have rust, or the frame and, you know, doesn't have rust. All the components that are replaceable are easily replaceable, but they're just old and worn or rusty or dry rotted or whatever, you know, or just worn out. And you can take that entire thing apart piece by piece and then powder coat the frame, redo the body, you know, go through a lot of work and do a real full restoration on something. You know, so when I say restoration obsession, I am obsessed with just bringing things back to a usable condition where they are pleasurable to use again and durable and can be used for their intended purpose for as long as you want, really, as long as you take care of it, you know. It's like restoring something back to brand new. Pinball machine playfields, for example, that's really important. I have a few of those, a few pinballs I've restored where the playfields are like brand new because I restored them. And the cabinet on the outside just looks like crap because it's like, well, it's going to get moved and beat up and whatnot, and I'm not planning on selling it. But if I was, I would already have the playfield done, and then I can spray the outside, you know, level and smooth and spray the outside, and then clean it up and sell it for a good amount of money, which is what I've been doing with pinball machines and stuff. To me, restoration doesn't equal, you know, Jay Leno level of restoration. Like his stuff, I wish I could restore to that level. I would need a shop like he's got, actually. I mean, to really be able to do it right. He's one of my car guys. Like, oh my God, if I could ever meet Jay, I would be like in hog heaven, you know? Like, I love him. I think he's a really good guy. He's definitely just like cars. Oh my God. That dude knows cars, you know, and has cars. Holy crap. It's amazing. I am obsessed with restoring stuff, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm obsessed with making every aspect of stuff perfect. So I'm not totally a perfectionist, I guess, but I am in regards to what I do. So when I, rebuilt my carb, that had to be perfect as I could get it. Or putting in that back spring, I would check and make sure it was just perfectly, each little part was, it's got to be right on. So I guess in a way I am, but not always. You gotta just flow, right? So that's another factor. But it wasn't like all of a sudden one day I decided, hey, I'm gonna start fixing things and restoring stuff. It really kind of goes back to when I had bicycles as a kid and skateboards. Because when you would skate with skates back in those days, well, skates actually, or skateboards, a lot of times you had open bearings and they would get dirty, and I'm like, Dad, my wheels don't turn. And he's like, oh, just pop your bearings out and drop them in some gasoline or kerosene and let them sit in there for a few days, give them some shakes every now and then take them out and let them air dry for a day, and then grease them up and stick them back in there. I was like, what? Okay. And so that's what I did. I was like, do you have a wrench to take that nut off there? What do I use for that? And so he helped me a little bit, but he never really showed me how to do anything. But sometimes he would tell me like that. One of the things though that I was really into was stripping my bikes down and repainting them, because I was all about pretty colors and like purple and bright purples and bright oranges. I liked those a lot back in those days. I still like orange a lot, actually. Although I wouldn't paint any vehicles purple. I never have painted a vehicle purple, but I did paint one of my bikes bright pearl orange once. It was pretty. I would take all the parts off my bikes. I would clean them like he had showed me how to clean the bearings, and I would clean them, and then I would rough sand the paint that was on the frame, and then I would spray it with primer, and then I would light sand that, and then I would spray it with usually enamels, sometimes a lacquer. Reassemble all the parts and just learn from trial and error. Like when you're putting the spindles back together, you put that kind of the crank through the crank spindle part of the frame with the bearings on each side. They have the bearings, with the big 1/4 inch, or maybe not 1/4 inch, but the big balls, and then you got to tighten those outer caps down just enough and put grease in there, of course. And so I learned how to do all that from asking my dad, what should I do now, And once he showed me, I knew it. I didn't have to ask again. It was great. So I could tear apart a bike spindle and swap it out in like 10 minutes, And you get to learn how tight is tight enough or too tight, and it's like, oh my damn, it doesn't turn. Oh, well, you've tightened the nuts too tightly. Oh. That was when I was 10 maybe even younger. I was definitely 10. When I was 10, I was definitely working on bikes and stuff already. So, as you can see, working on my skateboards and my bicycles, and things like that, it saved me from having to ask my father for help, because he was often too busy or just not around, so I had to do a lot of that on my own, and I enjoyed it. I thought, wow, this is really kind of rewarding. I feel proud of myself for doing that. My bike feels great. And when I would repaint my bikes, I would strip them down, repaint them, clean the heck out of everything else. Sometimes I would replace some parts. I'd be like, I need some new grips. I need, new handlebars. I need whatever else, and I would get those things. And then I would upgrade it and paint it and clean it. And it was like a whole brand new bicycle. I loved that. I could take something I already owned and turn it into something even cooler. So that feeling, that concept, I guess, that way of living, I don't know what you would call it, that got into me in a big way, you know. Now, I'm gonna just tell you what cars I owned, because that's, sometimes people ask me this question, like what cool cars I've owned in the past or whatever. And I've experienced a lot of vehicles in my life. My very first car was a 1971 Triumph Spitfire that my parents thought, well, let's get her that. I don't know why. A 4-speed manual, tiny little thing, British, kind of cheap British car, and easy to get in trouble in. Yeah, that was great. And it was red. I loved that car. I put my first stereo in a car into that car. I had my first car fire in that car. I threw it out by throwing dirt off the road up under there, and it actually put the fire out. It was because of my stereo install. Yeah, you live and you learn. I loved that car, and I got caught driving it a little crazy quite a few times, but I never got any tickets. By the time I left the small town I lived in, I had 21 written or verbal warnings and not a single ticket. And I was only 18. I was a hellion. So that was my first car. My dad he had bikes as I was growing up, and one of his bikes was an old Kawasaki dirt bike that I think he got rid of or traded in on a 79 KZ400, and that thing was beastly. We went all over the place on that bike. It was fun. I liked riding on the back. He had a little back pad thing, you know, like a little sissy bar kind of thing, and so I could just lay back and just like fly down the road sitting behind him, and that was fun. He did work on those too. He ended up giving me that bike. I don't know why. It was a freaking death trap, but I had that for like a month or two, and then I said, hey, I was at the Honda shop today, and they have a really sweet little dirt bike that's for sale, and I think I could trade the KZ for that. Would you be okay with that? And he's like, well, okay, let's go check it out. So we went, and I ended up trading for the dirt bike, which, that was a godsend, because I got my first taste of freedom on that bike. So it was a 1981 Honda XL 125S, just like this one. This bike that you're looking at right now is not my actual bike, but it looked exactly the same. It was this bike. And I loved that thing. I drove that thing everywhere. I went everywhere on that thing. I would take it up creeks, dry creeks, wet creeks, cow trails, deer trails. I went out on logging trails and stuff. One time I went out into the woods. These are the pine forests of northern Arizona. One time I went out on it in the afternoon after school. Because after school, I would just go on my bike out into the woods to escape, to keep away from the drama. I went up this murky, mucky, muddy logging trail up into the middle of frickin' nowhere, and came out to the spot where they had been cutting, and it was raining, like big drops, big heavy drops, and they were going poop, pat, 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 pat on my helmet, you know, and it was just like, oh, this is so creepy. I was like, got scared, you know, and like zipped home really fast, because it got dark like really quickly. So it was a heck of a thunderstorm moved in. But that was so fun, you know, and I almost rode off a cliff on that bike once. That was pretty scary. Almost got stuck on the side of almost a 40-degree hill. I was following a deer trail, and it just freaking stopped on the side of a hill. It didn't go anywhere, and I'm like, oh, fuck. How am I gonna turn around now? I'm fucked. I don't even remember what I did. I think I backed it up a ways until I got to a spot where I could turn it around safely. That's what I did. Yeah, I think I shut it off and then just started walking it back. I'm sure that's what there's no way I wanted to fall down that frickin' hill. I don't know how I ended up there. It was like, what the hell? How'd I end up right here? That was my ticket to freedom, though, that bike. I put thousands of miles on that thing. With friends too. When I first learned how to drive any vehicle, I learned on my friend's Honda XL250. And that was a beast. God, what a cool bike. I really wish he still had that. That was a sweet, sweet bike. It just had such a great rapport. You know, pop, 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 pop. Just so deep and throaty and it had so much power compared to my little 125. But it was just sweet. And it looked badass too, you know, it was a cool bike. I was so jealous. One time, this was before I got my license, he had recently got his dirt bike and it snowed where we lived. And one time I was like, dude, okay, before you go home, because he lived not far away, I said, start it up and get it out into the street, because the street had like 2 or 3 inches of snow on it. And I'm like, I want you to pull me behind you and see how far I can go. And so I held on to the rack on the back of his bike and sort of skied on my tennis shoes, I guess. I don't know what I was wearing, you know, and slid behind him for like half a mile. And he started going way too fast. I'm like, oh fuck, what did I get myself into again? That was awesome. Bikes were great. And so he was the one who taught me how to drive, basically. Then my father tried to teach me how to drive, but he had a huge temper and no patience. So in the middle of that, the throttle got stuck. He blew up into a rage and freaked out thinking I was doing it, and I wasn't. And because he worked on that car. And I'm like, dude, the throttle is stuck. I'm not, look, my feet are back here. What the fuck? I had one on the brake though, and I was keeping it from, and he's like freaking out, you know. But he made me pull over and screamed at me to get out and go, you know, I thought he was going to leave me there, and he didn't, but he was as red as this. I mean, he was pissed. And I didn't do anything. That might give you an idea of how it was lots of drama and toxic. So after that, my friend who taught me how to ride, he then let me start learning how to drive in, I think, his Triumph Spitfire, which he called Triumph Backfire. And so we each had Triumph Backfires, and we loved our Triumphs. His was green and mine was red. So we looked like little pieces of Christmas coming down the road. My parents just all of a sudden one day decided, well, we're gonna trade that Spitfire in towards these 2 new cars. I was like, what? What am I gonna do for a car? Well, we'll get you something. I'm like, oh great, okay. All right. So then I just had a dirt bike, which I then put tons of miles on and time. And then they got me a 73 Celica, which was sweet. It was metallic forest green with a beautiful white interior. And I don't know why, for a teenager, you know, and a beautiful white vinyl top on top of the hard top, you know. Gorgeous car. And I got in trouble in that car, and they were like, okay, we're getting rid of that car now. And I think I had it for 2 or 3 months, and they got angry at me and took the car away, and it disappeared from my life. And then after that, they said something, I think they said something about getting me another car, and I said, I'm buying my own car this time. That way you can't frickin' take it from me. I worked, and I was 16, and I was working at McDonald's, actually. And I loved that. It was fun. And I saved up, and I bought myself a 1971 Vegas station wagon. And it was tan. It looked kind of like a Camaro from the front, so I liked that. And I painted like black on the sides at the bottom. And so it looked pretty cool. And I put a cherry bomb on it, of course, and tinted the heck out of those windows. You could not see through the back windows. They were so dark. And I loved that car. That car and I had so much fun. And years later, I ended up selling it to some metalheads. I'm a metalhead too, by the way. But I sold that to some metalheads up in Flagstaff. Our agreed upon price was $666. That was awesome. Those guys were so cool. I wonder if they still have that car somewhere. After that, I ended up buying for $400 just a wreck of a 1973 Dodge Charger 440. And it was red. It was originally a 346 pack, which would be so valuable right now if I still had that fucking thing. I'm so pissed that I traded it for a freaking motorcycle. But anyway, that was my first semi-restoration. Here's a picture of it. Now this picture is of it looking pretty bad. The window is cracked and broken because, like a bonehead, I did not put the pins back in the pins that were holding the hood down. And I was driving it at 90 miles an hour one night, and the hood went flying up over the windshield and just bent the shit out of that beautiful 340 Magnum hood and cracked the windshield. So I had to get another hood for it, and the only thing I could find was a stock crappy hood that you see on it right now. Man, that just sucked. Ugh. I hated myself for that because that 340 Magnum hood was really sweet. It was like, had a rise in the middle, you know, and it said 340 Magnum on it. And the guy who owned it he had done some real crazy shit to that car. Like, you couldn't use the accelerator. You had to put vice grips on it to get enough reach on it so you could pull it and accelerate. There were no brakes when I got that car. No door locks, no headliner, no trunk lock. It was wired shut. I mean, that poor car, it was just a wreck. I don't know. $400 though, you know. So I fixed it up and I put a lot of new stuff on it, and it looked like you see it in the picture, and then I painted it dark metallic blue, and I ended up trading it because it had a cracked frame, and I guess the guy had wrecked it or something at some point. So it never quite drove straight, you know. But it was a freaking awesome car to own. It had the 727 torque flight transmission with the slapstick and the slapstick console, which was really badass. The times that were had in that car. That car was huge. It was like a ginormous machine in every way. Except I always thought the wheels looked really small on it, you know. Anyway, after that, same ex had a 77 El Camino that I worked on and, you know, got to work on, I should say. That had a 350 with headers and I think something like Super 44s maybe were the muffler on that, so it sounded really cool. I like the Super 44 a lot. I traded the Charger for something more fuel efficient because that was a factor. So I got a KZ750, like a freaking idiot. That's the one I painted orange. After that, it was being married and having family crappy cars, you know, so it was that kind of situation. And then I did my first engine short block rebuild, or not short block rebuild, but short block install on an 84 S10 Blazer that I got from some friends for super cheap because the engine was blown, so I put a new engine in it. And then the transfer case started going, and then it started going king, 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 king as I'm driving down the road. I'm like, oh great. So I had that fixed, and then I'm driving somewhere, and it starts overheating, and it turns out it blew a head gasket. So I'm like, oh my God, what the heck? And I read bad things about that engine. It's a V6 and it could have been really cool, but I ended up trading that for a 96 Chevy Lumina sedan. Unbeknownst to me, that motor also had the same head gasket problem, which ended up happening to me at some point a few years later. But while I was driving my brand new sedan down the road home from work one night, had my windows down, and I heard ting, 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 and I'm like, that sounds like my old Blazer. And there it goes, right past me, and I'm like, what? It was so funny. Anyway, after the Lumina, it blew an engine, so I ended up just selling it for scrap, and my mother gave me her old 2004 Mazda 6, which was really sweet. I loved that car. Then I traded that car for my 2014 Cherokee, which I factory ordered. And but before that, I also owned a 2000 Suzuki Bandit motorcycle that a guy gave me, and I loved that bike. God, it was great. But then I moved back to Arizona, the big city. No way am I riding that thing around here or anywhere near here. Too much risk. And so I sold that to a sweet guy. And then I used that money to buy my CJ. Then I came upon the TR7, and that was a good deal. So I bought that for a good price and rebuilt that motor, and have done a lot of work to that car, and just need to get my butt out there and finish it up and sell it. But I kind of don't want to sell it, you know? It'd be a fun car to drive around the twisties. And I like a manual transmission in a car. Oh my goodness. Way more fun to drive than an auto. I think one of my plans for my Corvette is to put a Tremec 5-speed into it. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll talk about doing upgrades on that in a minute. So that brings me up to 2020. Wow, almost 2 years ago I bought my Corvette, and there are other cars I'd love to own. I always wanted a 70 Nova or Duster. I know they're two different things, but I love both of them. I'd love to own a early 70s split bumper Camaro. I really would love to have find a really nice old Dodge Ram van, or whatever the custom van Dodge. The Dodge van that was used for custom vans in the 70s. That one, or a short Chevy van. I would love to do a custom van. But see, I can't do that right now, and everything like that for me is on hiatus. And so basically where I'm at right now is right there. That brings me up to today. So thank you so much for watching all of this and listening to me babble on. I don't know why you've listened to me all this, but thank you. I really am planning on getting back to work on my vet, and I have sold 13 big things recently, from pinball machines to video games and a jukebox I sold today. So I've been in the process of selling off stuff and preparing to migrate in a different direction. One thing I wanted to talk about real quick was my plans for the future of this channel. I want you guys to know that I have every intention of making this an even better channel than it is currently. I think this channel could do really well over time, and I'm really excited about it, and I really want to make it successful. I would love to just do car restoration work or this channel type stuff for a living, and so I'm going to ask you guys for some feedback on some thoughts about that. One of the things that I need is money to work with. I'll sell this house, I'll buy a property outright for cash, and I will be able to then start really working on my car, because I will have a garage. I'm not buying a place that doesn't have a garage of some kind for me to work in. Even if it's a pretty little barn out on a pasture. That would be awesome. Ha! Oh my God. I would love nothing more than to have my shop in a barn in a beautiful rolling hills of some wonderful place, you know. What I'm thinking is, I would really, really like to put new headers and side pipes on my Corvette. And I would like to know if you guys would be interested in helping me do that. I will film it and go through the whole process and all of that and post the video or videos of it, of course. But what I'm asking is, how would you feel about contributing a few bucks towards parts? I'm not asking for my viewers here to support my habit of car addiction, you know, but it's really hard for me to come up with a few extra grand for an upgrade like that because I want to do it right. I want to put Doug's headers on it. I want to put really nice, high quality side pipes on it. I would really like to put a very quiet muffler on the rear of the car and have, well, two of them, and have the standard exhaust run back to those and have a valve system so I could just push a button and change from nice quiet rear stock factory type exhaust to out and out just open freaking pipes on the sides, you know? That would be badass. So I can't really do that right now. And once I move, I'm gonna be on a limited budget. So I'm trying to think of ways that I could generate cash flow to do that. And then, you know, if you guys want to help contribute, I don't know, is that a bad thing to ask? I don't even know. Like if I set up a GoFundMe for that project, how would you feel about chipping in? Would that be okay? That's an idea I had. Other than that, I don't know the ins and outs of making money doing this, except that, you know, I know how to buy something that's all beat to crap, fix it up, and then turn it around and sell it. But the truth is, with a lot of things like that, you know, I've invested $20,000 into this car, and there ain't no way I could get that much out of it, probably. So, you gotta do it because you love it. If you're wondering what that noise was, that was my heater turning off. That's my idea. It's a loose idea, and there it is. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you think. Would you be into that idea, or is that just too money grabby sounding? I don't want to be money grabby sounding. I don't like that. So, but I know that a lot of YouTubers that rebuild cars and stuff, they actually do make enough off their YouTube channel to support their car builds. And if I could do that, dude, I'd be in heaven. So let me know what you think about that. So another thing I plan to do with the channel is more drives. I really want to do some drives. So where I plan to go, I'm going to leave it as a surprise, but where I plan to go is very, very scenic, very beautiful, with so many beautiful roads to drive and so many amazing places to see, that what I have in mind is to do maintenance videos that are just kind of standard maintenance, just typical stuff. I want to do restoration, well, modding videos, like side pipes, for example. I want to do customizing. I guess that's customizing. I don't know. I guess it's not customizing anymore, is it? It's modding. But I want to do restoration type stuff too. So, but I also want to do driving videos and exploration videos because I love to drive and explore places in my cars and bikes, though I don't have any bikes. But anyway, so thank you so much for listening to me go on and not having so much content, I guess, here on this video anyway. And thank you so much for your support. When you watch my videos, please make sure to like or dislike them, whichever suits your fancy. And if you haven't subscribed and you've watched all this, wow, well, thank you. Go ahead and click the subscribe button and help me out. And let me know your thoughts about what you would like to see of this channel. Be nice. Don't tell me to shove my channel in a trash can. Well, you can just sweep your channel right into the drain in the middle of the bay right there, along with all the grease and the grime. There you go. No, I'm kidding, of course. So anyways, you guys, Happy New Year to you. I hope you're doing well, and I will see you in the shop or on the road. Peace.